Oh, great. It's little miss can't handle a little teasing, Lincoln hissed quietly. The emo cringed when she called her that. When he called her that, I didn't expect you to be at school of all places. I might have gone home from, but I don't even. I know I still have to go to school, and the better question is, what are you doing here? I thought you'd be curled up into a vent somewhere writing your stupid poems. After hearing Lincoln's trad last night, Lucy wouldn't be surprised, and shouldn't be, by his harsh tone. Yet it still stung her heart like the calm, caring, and compassionate brother she used to know and had been replaced by someone who probably didn't give a shit about what she thought. The library is also a nice place, quiet to write, she stammered. Sure it is. Lincoln turned away from her, closing the internet browser and beginning to log off the computer. Lucy simply just stood there, conflicted. Part of her ways was to be happy that she found Lincoln looking in better shape than when he ran off the previous night. She noticed that his hand was wrapped in medical bandages, yet she couldn't shake the ever-increasing amount of guilt that was welling up in her. Usually she has the superstitious one in the family that would grow right off the bat whether or not her own brother was bad luck. Yet, like all 8-year-olds, Lucy was gullible, and she fell into the same train of thought as her family did, and Lynn herself proved to be an even bigger believer of luck than Lucy was. But while the emo had to do something, while it was clear that Lincoln had gotten help from an unknown source, everyone wished for his return. If Lucy could convince him to come back home, the family could try and work things out. But given the boy's attitude, this wouldn't be easy. Lincoln, I know you're still upset about what we did, but please, we miss you, and everyone in our family deeply regrets what we did to you. We spent hours searching all over town and came up short. Lori even asked her boyfriend where you were, and he didn't say anything. No surprise there, Lincoln thought. Lucy silently walked up to him. Likely it's too late to say it, but I'm sorry for not believing in your truth and not having any sort of luck in using you. If anything, I really should have told and seen to talk to some sense into Lynn of what really luck is. The Ace-savvy fan didn't say anything to her. Lucy looked at the floor in defeat before turning to leave. Yeah, you should have, he spoke, making the emote do about face. Lucy, you may say you're sorry, but your apology falls short to compare to what you did to me. After I proved I wasn't bad luck, you guys apologized, but what you did made me do afterwards? Lincoln's voice was laced with venom on the last sentence. Lucy didn't want to answer to that. Yet, as both knew what happened, he wheeled the chair over to face her. I'm pretty sure you remember that time I took the fall for you when you clogged the toilet with that stupid book of yours. I did it because I felt bad for you after everyone was mocking Princess Pony, and you didn't want to suffer from that embarrassment. It took 3 freaking weeks before my supposed sisters finally shut up about it. But at the time I always thought, better you than me, because that's what big brothers do for their little sisters. Lucy averted her gaze because she couldn't afford to look at him. She didn't want to look at him. Everything he made her feel even more of a jerk and a hypocrite. But Lincoln wanted a look of dead in her eyes for what he was going to say next. He lightly grabbed the top of her head, tilted up, gave a cold stare in her emerald green eyes, through the locks of dyed hair. At this point, had I known you'd kick me to the curb like the rest of my so-called family, I would have just let you admit the truth, and I might have laughed at you as well. While it was nice that you made that comic for me, it still doesn't make up the fact that I missed out on a good weekend for nothing. He released the now trembling 8-year-old, who was at the verge of crying. Lincoln took his phone, opened up the recent calls menu, showing it to his sister. Lucy let out a gasp as she stared at the number at the very top of the list. You didn't. No, but I was very close. The only reason why I didn't is because even if I'm just so pissed at you all right now, I don't want to see Mom or Dad go to jail for several years. But that doesn't mean I'm so willing to forgive any of you. Lincoln put his phone away. I'm not coming home, Lucy. At least not right now. You say you're sorry for what happened, but how can I trust you? You guys apologizing thinking I was bad luck when Van made me wear a stupid suit for good luck. How am I supposed to take your own word now? Lucy blinked, letting a few tears roll down her cheeks. She opened her mouth to bring up a counter-argument, but then closed it. My point exactly. As far as I'm concerned, your words mean nothing to me now. I thought I held some special connection with you, Lenny, Lana, and especially Luna. But after what happened with my family over the weeks, and of course you guys proved that you'll be just like the rest of my sisters. I guess I am some genetic defect in the whole gene pool, as Lisa would put it. The emo shook her head. Lincoln, what Lynn did, it was a lie. She didn't mean to. If she didn't mean to, she shouldn't have said it in the first place. And I'm not going to forgive her for all the shit I've had to put up with her for years. Especially with that head her up her ass attitude. Both heard a loud shh sound. Looking over, the kids saw it was a librarian who gave him a scowl. In a hushed tone, what I'm saying is, I can't trust any of you now. I can't trust anything you say because how am I supposed to know that you won't go back to your word on the moment you get the chance? Lincoln got up from the chair. I'm not coming back home, Lucy. Not until you guys can prove to me that not only you regret everything that happened, but won't make the same mistakes again. I've had a place to stay at, so don't bother looking for me. Pass it on to the others. He walked to the door. The middle child stopped at the entrance to give his sister a harsh glare. But if you try to drag me back to that house, I might reconsider that option about not getting the cops involved. With that, the white-haired boy stepped out of the library, leaving an utterly shattered Lucy. She didn't even get a chance to tell him what Lynn was going through right now because of her actions. But Lincoln made sure his intentions are clear. He wouldn't want to return to the Loud House until the family proved that they would change their ways. Not only that, he had a massive bargaining chip ensured that the boy would come back into his own accord. The goth lover was still shocked that Lincoln actually considered calling the cops on them. Lucy couldn't imagine what would have happened if the cops found out about this, but she knew the results wouldn't be pretty. Wiping away the fresh tears and stifling a sob, the girl did her best that she could to hide her emotions. She didn't want anyone else to see her and stare at what the garner questions, but that task was going to be difficult, knowing that her only brother effectively hated her and the rest of his family. The 8-year-old walked up to the door, poked her head out, hoping to catch another glimpse of Lincoln. Sadly, she did not. Hearing the bell ring, Lucy quickly made her way to the lunchroom. She, on the other hand, really needed to eat, and to get this message out to the rest of her family as soon as possible. Clyde walked around the playground looking for his best friend. Something about Lincoln just seemed off. The boy wasn't usually his usual cheery self, and on top of that, he didn't want to see him on the way to school. The nerdy child was just glad to see him in class, but even then, Lincoln didn't talk much. Several sessions of therapy gave Clyde a good sense of to know when someone was upset, even if it wasn't obvious. One thing that did stand out was the fact that Lincoln wasn't wearing that squirrel suit. He was happy that it seemed that Lincoln managed to talk his family out of their superstitions, but then again, wouldn't he be smiling? The chip-toothed boy didn't seem to quite complain a lot about having to wear that thing. He did. So Clyde finally spotted his best friend sitting on one of the swings. If his depression wasn't clear earlier, it definitely was now. He wasn't alone either. To his right was Ronnie Ann, sitting on another swing. She seemed to have this shocked expression on her face. You told her everything? No, not all of it. Just soon enough they wouldn't bother roaming the streets looking for me. She doesn't know I'm staying at your place. Hey guys, am I interrupting anything? Clyde asked. Clyde? Hey there, both of them said. Okay, obviously I missed something, Clyde said before taking the swing to Lincoln's left. You don't know half of it, buddy, Lincoln started. The next few minutes were spent Lincoln explaining what happened, everything to Clyde, sparing him no details. He told him everything up to the point of his encounter with Lucy. There was a bit of a pause before Lincoln told him whatever he decided for the police intervention, though. During the whole discussion, Clyde expressed several signs of fear, rage, disgust, and just general shock. By the time Lincoln was finished, the boy's mouth was stuck hung open. He knew the Louds were chaotic, but he never expected to hear Lincoln tell him they actually locked him out of the house and sold his stuff. All the past annoyances that the family did, ousting their only son or brother, likely the worst. It was at this point Clyde began to see why Lincoln tended to confide him about the misdeeds of his folks. While Lincoln didn't even mention his past faults his sisters put him through, the African American's heart was tearing a bit just imagining it. He thought that, despite all the hectic shenanigans, the family loved each other though. They might as well be monsters, even as sweet as Lori was one of them. "Close your mouth before I do it for you, McBride," Ronaldo ordered. Clyde shook his head. "So sorry, but dude, that's heavy. I didn't even know what to say about that. I know you said living in a large family is difficult, but geez, are you sure about that decision of not doing what you were about to do moments ago? And why would you be afraid of telling us about that?" Lincoln gave a simple nod. "I was nervous about saying anything about me not calling the cops because I thought you might think I'm a coward and an idiot for not getting professional help." In response, Ronaldo gave him a semi-hard slap on the cheek, shocking the two boys. "Don't ever think that like that, Lamo. What you did was pretty ballsy on your part. You could have, but you weighed your options carefully. Seeing how you could have torn your family apart, even if they would deserve it, means you have a bigger heart than most of the world would think." That was one quality Ronaldo liked about Lincoln. Even if he was upset with someone, he still had compassion for them. It was likely the reason why he gave her a chance. The African American nodded. "She's got a point there. I certainly wouldn't think less of you." Lincoln rubbed his reddened cheek. "Thanks, guys. I needed that." He gave a small smile. It turned back into a frown when he looked at his best friend. "Now, Clyde, promise not to tell anyone about this, right?" The nerd nodded. "And you promise not to think about calling the police yourself?" "Lincoln, I'm your best friend. There's no way I disrespect your decisions, especially when it revolves around your family. But I gotta know, do you think you'll ever return home?" In all honesty, Lincoln didn't even know how to answer that one. On one hand, he wished that he didn't need to use those like he thought he loved him since the day he was born and was extended period of time. On the other, his heart ached with sadness still due to wanting to try and make up with them. But like he told Lucy, he clearly already made his choice, and there was no going back on that. "Like I said, there's no way I could trust any of them right now, and..." The boy felt something in his head, making a pause. He looked at the ground. He saw it was an acorn. "What the..." Suddenly a storm of said trees seized petals. Not only him, but his friends too. "Forgot your lunch, Larry?" a voice called out. By now, Lincoln wasn't so surprised that a certain someone would call him that. Turning by the irate look, the boy saw Chandler, a couple of his friends, poking fun at him. Not only the day without a kid picking on him just for the sake of being a nuisance. Chandler had been driving Lincoln up the wall for the past week due to being forced to wear the softball team's mascot by his family. Even if he didn't have it anymore, the redhead still got picked on him about it. "You could use that tooth of yours to crack them open. Here's some extras, by the way," one of the boys shouted before tossing another branch at them. And of course the trio then high-fived each other as they accomplished something big. Lincoln gritted his teeth in anger. Little did those boys know, Lincoln wasn't so much of a pacifist of late. He still held on to his newfound rage like a sidearm. He could unleash it at the moment's notice if someone attempted him through. His knuckles turned white due to gripping the swing chains harder. Lincoln was still pissed at Chandler after the boy used him to get a moment's notice if someone attempted him enough. His knuckles turned, but of course, he had used him to get away for some free stuff at Gus's Games and Grub, but then having the nerve not to invite him to his party. Sadly, it took such an event for Lincoln just to see how much of an asshole Chandler really is. Ronaldo then noticed this and gently wrapped her hands around his, unintentionally making him glare at her. "Don't do it, Lincoln. He's not worth it." She glared at Chandler. Lincoln held his irate look for a moment before giving a heavy sigh. Dispelling his rage, as much as he liked to pound that redhead to pace, it wouldn't be worth getting suspended over it. as it would enforce this. The bell rang, signaling the end of recess. The trio got up from the swing set and walked over towards the entrance. I was saying I can't trust any of them now, and I still have that option of actually calling the cops if they disrespect my wishes. The school carried on like usual. Everyone was waiting for that clock to strike 2 o'clock so they could stampede out of the building. But for one Loud, it was anything but. With her bruised foot, Lynn Loud Jr. was constantly reminded of that grave mistake ever since her team lost that one game. The athlete could barely pay attention in class and had been called out for numerous times, but she didn't care. The only thing was on her mind was her missing brother. Unlike Lucy, Lynn didn't know what Lincoln was actually in the school, but even if she somehow managed to catch a glimpse on him, what could she really do? Once the final bell rang, the school came alive as students piled out of the school like ants disturbed out their anthill, ready to take advantage of yet another weekend. Lynn slowly walked her way towards the front of the school, a frown etched on her face. She was thankful to be alone, because if someone asked her why she quit the team again, the jock was sure she'd smack them for one of her crutches. Pretty soon, the only thing she could hear in the hall was the sound of crutch pads hitting the floor. But she wasn't completely alone. Lynn, jumping 2 feet into the air, the surprised Loud landed on her butt. Looking up, she saw there was just her emo of a sister. "Dang it, Lucy! You get the damn bell." "Sorry." The dark-haired girl helped her sister up. "I have some urgent news now. Do you know where the twins are?" "Probably outside. What's so important?" "It's about Lincoln." Lynn's eyes grew in the size of dinner plates. "Lincoln?" She grabbed her emo by the shoulders and shook her vigorously. "You saw him? Where is he? Is he okay?" Lucy held her stoic expression, although her voice was bumpy. "Yes. Just stop shaking me." Once the jock stopped, Lucy adjusted her hair. "I saw him in the library today when I was looking for a quiet place to write. He wasn't in the best of moods, but he's looking better." She just walked towards the door. "Come on. Our sisters and parents need to hear what I have to say. And to be honest, it's pretty dark. Aren't you the Duchess of Darkness?" "That's what I'm about to tell everyone is so dark, as well as beyond my tastes." Lynn stared at her sister uneasily. What Lincoln did say to her would put something like Lucy on edge. She'd find out soon enough. Soon the two found the twins, who were waiting impatiently for them. Lucy told them the same thing, which led them to many questions. The emo, however, didn't say much as they started headed home. The twins wanted to check around the school for any sign of Lincoln, but Lucy outright stated that it's best to try not to find him. Much to their dismay of siblings, it bugged them to no end that the emo was withholding a crucial information. But they were forced to be patient. On the way home, Lynn pulled out her phone and spread the word to the rest of the family. She instantly got bombarded with so many texts after that could make Lori proud. To the athlete's annoyance, she just told them to meet at home. Once the four got to the house, it wasn't long before the rest of the family began to pile in. Lenny shoved the door open roughly. "You guys found Linky?" "Where did you see him?" Luna asked next. "You guys literally have good information," Lori stated. "Is he doing okay?" Luann asked. Pretty soon the rest of the girls' questions jumbled to an incoherent choir. As they continued with the questioning, Lynn noticed Van Zilla pulling into the driveway, which meant the parents were home by now. Furrowing her brows, "Quiet!" Thankfully, this got everyone to shut up. "Lucy knows everything about Lincoln right now, so she has the floor once Mom and Dad get in the house. So stop asking with the questions." "Thanks, Lynn." "Lynn Jr., are you certain you girls saw him?" Lynn Sr. asked, as he along with Rita and Lily stepped into the house. "I did. You should sit down for this," Lucy stated. Once the family was seated in the living room, "I found Lincoln at the library at the school. He looked better than from when I saw him when he left the house in a huff, and even one of his hands was bandaged. It's clear he got help from someone, but he wouldn't say who. Lincoln is still highly upset at us, to the point where he did the almost unthinkable." "Well, but what did he do?" Lana asked. "He was very close to calling the police." The family let out a collective gasp. There was another wave of guilt slammed onto them as Lucy let them digest this information. It was unspoken argument that no one should dare ask the police for help looking for Lincoln. due to reasons Lola and Lisa brought up. But the fact that the person they desperately sought almost pulled a warrant on them, not only for making them fearful son or brother, but also did a good deal for them that they might see a possible time behind bars. The older sisters were beginning to worry about spending time in juvenile, or in Lori's case, be tried as an adult. The younger ones were worried about them being sent to foster care, being separated from each other, given to different families. But this paled in comparison to what the parents were thinking. Out of everyone in the room, Rita and Lynn Sr. had the right to be the most worried. The thought of not seeing their beloved children for years, of what may happen to them during this time, shook them to their very cores. This also doubt the police to go easy on them if they had told them the real reason their son was locked out. On top of the whole furniture issue, the two heard many stories about child abandonment on the news, and was told themselves they would never do such thing to their kids. Yet here they were, facing the prospect of potential jail time because of the one thing they promised they would not do. "I'm too pretty to go to jail!" Lenny cried. "Guys, relax. He said he almost called the cops. He didn't because even though Lincoln doesn't like us right now, he still couldn't stand off the fact that Mom and Dad are going to prison for a couple years." This brought some relief to the family, but not so much. "He also said he can't trust any of us, as much as he wouldn't come home until we show him that he can learn to live with us again. He's found a place to stay, but he said not to look for him. He also said if we try to force him to come back, he might call the police like he intended to." The news was pretty grim. The situation was clear. Everyone had their metaphorical gun pointed at their heads now. Lincoln wanted to come home, onto his own accord, and nothing would change that. The family collectively drove him away due to their ignorance, and now was effectively holding the key that would either make them whole again or break them into tiny pieces that all depend on what the Louds decided to do. Lori got up from her seat. "I'm heading up. I need to lie down for a bit," she stated solemnly, before sauntering up the stairs. The few of the other sisters followed suit, leaving Lynn Jr., Lisa, Lola, and Luann. They were too shocked to say anything. However, Lisa did notice that Lincoln's school bag was missing. The parents had separated, needing their own space to think. Lynn Sr. walked outside, wondering where he went wrong as a father. Being the other only male in the house, he was supposed to be an inspiration for his son in the sea of females they lived. But instead, he pushed him away like everyone else in the family. He could feel his own father looking down on him in disappointment right now. How could he call himself a parent after everything that happened? Hell, he even showed more care in the suit than his son's own well-being after being attacked by a large reptile, banging his head against one of the supports on the bench. Lynn Sr. silently cried to himself. This didn't go unnoticed until their neighbor Mr. Grouse seized us. With Rita, she had a box of tissues in her hand as she sobbed into herself. Not only was her baby boy with them, angry with them, but now he just threatened to put his own mother behind bars. She wondered what her father would think of her right now. No doubt that he'd be disappointed beyond belief because he didn't raise his daughter to abandon her children. Rita began to question if she was even qualified to raise a boy. 1 male out of 10 females was a very rare occurrence. Maybe she got used to raising so many daughters that she tried raising Lincoln the same way, which could lead to problems later on. The monarch just didn't know what to do with herself right now. She was stuck up bringing the questions she didn't have leave an answer to. And she just couldn't bear watching the family crumble apart, especially when she felt largely responsible. She needed help. Looking at her house phone, she stared at the moment, thinking of what to do. After some hesitation, she grabbed the device and dialed a number. "Sunset Canyon Retirement Home," a happy voice stated. "Yes, is Albert Reed's available?" The happy voice then turned to an annoyed groan. "Give me a sec." 10 seconds later, Rita then heard the familiar voice of her father. "Hello? Hi, Dad." "Hey, darling, how have you been?" Albert asked in excitement. Instead, he heard sobbing on the line. "Sweetie, what's wrong?" "Dad, I messed up. I messed up big time."